I don't even remember really first starting to act. I was constantly performing, even as a really little girl. I was jumping around and doing dances and all sorts of things for my mom. There was a moment when I was in 3rd or 4th grade and I was in some school play and I was playing a queen and I was supposed to faint. It was like a dramatic scene. I fainted and everybody laughed. And they weren't supposed to laugh, but I didn't mind that they were laughing. I remember thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. So that was sort of an aha moment. Hi, I'm Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and this is my Vanity Fair career timeline, whatever that means.
Well, where's my best zit? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Hi.
Look, Kenny, listen, I was thinking I don't have to go tonight, but I'm willing to go to the prom looking like this if you're willing to go with me.
Hey, no.
Saturday Night Live. I was going to school at Northwestern University, and I was doing a show in downtown Chicago with the Practical Theater Company between my junior and senior year of college. And unbeknownst to me were the producers of SNL in the audience. And after that particular show ended, they came backstage and they offered all of us a job on Saturday Night Live. So we were like, yeah, good. So that was it. I flew the coop. The first sketch that I was ever in on SNL was a sketch actually with Chevy Chase as the shark, but he was doing it remotely, and so it was sort of like a television screen inside the mouth of a shark, and it was one of the Candygram kind of thing. It was completely surreal. I came to SNL at the age of 21. I was unbelievably naive. I had really done very little professional theater, only Second City and Practical Theater in Chicago. I had no idea about this business of show. It was a very male-dominated, male-centric environment there, in addition to the fact that everybody was completely high on any drug that they could get their hands on. And I had no idea. I learned quick. It was not exactly what I thought it was going to be. Larry David and I were both at SNL together, and he was there my 3rd year. We were both miserable together, and we bonded over our misery. And we've been miserable ever since. I came back to host, I think, in 2006, and I was really quite happy to do it. I mean, it was an interesting experience because I had been there. Sort of like, it's like going back to high school and being able to relive certain moments that spin around in your head. So I knew how the show worked. I knew how to navigate it. It wasn't unknown to me. It was really, really fun. And furthermore, when I went back, it was being produced by Lauren Michaels, and it was very female friendly. Tina and Amy and Kristen and Maya, they were all there. So I had an absolute ball. My big takeaway from being on SNL was that I was only going to do jobs that were pure fun from there on out. As simplistic as that sounds, that's not something that's always so easily attained, but that was my goal. And I have, for the most part.
All right, who's dancing? Come on, who's dancing? You want me to get it started? I'll get it started. I'll do it. All right.
Sweet, fancy Moses.
I became involved with the Seinfeld Chronicles, as it was called early on. They had made a pilot. I was not in the pilot. And then it came to my attention that NBC had picked up this show, the Seinfeld Chronicles, for 4 episodes. Larry David was writing it. Would I be interested? So I read a couple of the episodes, and I thought, oh, wow, this doesn't sound like anything on television. It definitely had a different voice, a different rhythm than any sitcom at that period of time. So I went in and I met with Jer, and we got along really well. And of course, Larry was an old friend of mine, and so I signed up to do it. I remember thinking back when we first started doing the show for those first 4 episodes, and I remember thinking, this show is so good and the network is going to be so stupid to cancel it, because I figured they would let it go. You know, a 4-episode order is hardly a seal of approval from the network. It felt like they were just burning off a commitment. I just figured we were goners, but we weren't. I had lots of thoughts about Elaine, and she was one of 4 characters, and it was very important to me that she was not just the girl, and she wasn't written as the girl, and so I sort of took that and ran with it. She was, I don't know, this is probably not quite right to say, but she was one of the guys, except she was a girl. The Elaine dance is from this episode called The Little Kicks. And it was just written that Elaine danced really badly. And so the night before the table read, I had the script. And frankly, I just stood in front of a mirror and tried to do movements that looked incredibly bad. And I had a few of them. And I remember my mom was staying with us at the time. And I came downstairs and I sort of auditioned these different movements for my mom and my husband, and they all voted on the one that I did. So there you go. People approach me about the dance all the time. I say, "Oh, thank you so much." No, I'm not going to do it. I don't have a favorite episode. I have many episodes that I loved. You know, we did that show for 9 years, and it evolved so much over that period of time. So, I mean, you know, early on, the episode The Deal, I loved the Soup Nazi. Of course, I loved the Little Kicks. I loved the Mango episode. I mean, it goes Puerto Rican Day Parade. I have a million shows. I mean, I'm actually a fan of the show, so I like a lot of the episodes, yeah. Jerry and I are really good friends and still are to this day. And just to, you know, sort of harken back to what I learned at SNL, we were having really good time on that show all the time. If it made us laugh, it made it into the show. So that was true of rehearsal, it was true of the writing process, it was true of improvising, and we were just trying to make each other laugh. And that was a really good, shall we say, equation for a kind of excellence. I learned so much that I learned about comedy, I learned more about timing. It was just more training in performing and more training in, frankly, even producing. I didn't produce Seinfeld, but I watched. So I learned a lot that I took with me moving forward.
Now, what do we do?
Oh, don't tell me. I know it. What is it?
We relax.
Right.
A Bug's Life. My friends at Pixar invited me to come in, and they wanted to hear my voice. I want to say it was for a different character, if I'm remembering this correctly. And we were just sort of playing around. And then all of a sudden, they asked me to read these lines of Ada Ant. And the next thing I know, they were asked me to do the one of the lead voices, which I was delighted to do. I hadn't really ever done voiceover work before. I hesitate to think what it sounds like. I don't know if it was good or not, because it was all new to me. But it was certainly a great deal of fun. It's entirely different from being on camera. Well, for starters, you can come in your sweatpants. You don't have to wear any makeup. But you have no other tool but your voice. So your voice has to inform everything, which is a very different way of performing than any other kind of performing. It has to tell the full story, your voice. So it means you have to sort of explore things vocally that you might not do otherwise. What I love most about Princess Ada was that she was strong. She was aggressive. She was a fighter. She wasn't just looking for a prince, which I liked.
Larry, the guy came, I got an estimate, and it's gonna cost $500 to fix that table. The ring. Yes, you did. Come on, man. Yes, you did. Please don't play this game with me.
I would tell you if I left it. I respect wood. I revere wood. I'm considerate of wood.
Well, I got involved with Curb because Lair just called and said, "Would you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I did a number of episodes as myself, and then later we sort of did this kind of our version of a Seinfeld reunion within the structure of Curb. That was crazy fun because we all got back together again. They rebuilt the set and sort of jerry-rigged it to, jerry-rigged, huh, that's funny. It was sort of a modern version of the Seinfeld apartment. And that was fun. It was really a great time for all of us. And, you know, to be able to play Elaine and then also to play me working on playing Elaine. That was kind of bizarre and kind of meta, but cool. It's kind of like what I'm doing right now, talking to camera. This is a version of myself, but it's not the real me. One of my most favorite memories of that time during Curb was Bob Einstein played the character of Marty Funkhauser, and I remember that he came onto set and he told the most foul joke, and it was so hilarious, and it got, by the way, completely folded into the show. I think it's in the cut. I was doubled over laughing. It was so inappropriate and wonderful. I encourage all of you to go and try and find that and see how offended you might become.
We have, Your Honor.
Yes, Maggie was the most feared prosecutor in all of Orange County.
And therefore, I would like to bring your attention to Exhibit A.
Mitch Hurwitz reached out to me. He said he was writing this character named Maggie Lizer, who was pretending that she was blind. So already it was like, oh, that sounds super interesting. And I was a fan of the show. So I said, great, I'll do it. So I went and did a number of episodes. I had a ball. It was harder to do than you might think because I did it with my eyes crossed the whole time. And believe it or not, when you're not actually looking at someone and talking to them in the scene because you can't really see them because your eyes are crossed, it makes it much harder to learn lines. Or at least it did for me. But maybe I'm just not that intelligent, and that's a possibility. But it was super fun. Years later, when I was doing Veep, and people came up to me and to Tony Hale and said, oh, you guys were both on Arrested together. Did you have scenes together? And both Tony and I said, no, we didn't. We never got a chance to work together. Well, guess what? We did work together. And we had both forgotten it. Somebody showed us a picture. We had a scene together. Neither of us remembered it. So you can see we made an extraordinarily positive impression on one another.
I'm done here.
Oh my God. Are you okay? What happened to you?
The guy I picked up at the wedding was an immigration officer. He's trying to ship me back to the Bahamas.
Oh, that's horrible. I had a bad time too.
The whole Christine script was sent to me by Warner Brothers, and I liked it very much. I met with Carrie Lizer, who wrote and created the show. She and I got along right away, and yeah, and so off we went to make this series for 5 years, and we had lots of wonderful actors on the show, including Wanda Sykes and Clark Gregg and Hamish Linklater, and the show itself was run by a bunch of women, which was very refreshing. A huge number of female writers and a lot of female producers, myself included, and a lot of working mothers. I will point that out too. So we got done with work always early. Everybody got home in time to make dinner, drive carpool, work on homework, you know, whatever it was. I like the dysfunction of old Christine. I like the dysfunction of the family relationship and the premise of her ex-husband going out with a woman with the same name who was younger and living with her brother. It just all felt kind of messy and people trying to do the right thing but screwing up constantly. The idea of a mother who was constantly screwing up was appealing to me.
Want a kiss?
Yeah. I became involved with Enough Said because I met with Nicole Holofcener. I had read the script, loved it. I met with her, we talked, we meshed really well, and then she offered me this part. And so I was I was the first person cast in the movie. We got along really well. I realized I haven't talked to her in a while. I need to talk to her because she's a good friend of mine. But I love that woman. And then Jim Gandolfini wanted to do the movie, and there we go. Off we went to this heartbreaking film, which I think it is actually. And Jim was utterly charming, surprisingly lacked a lot of confidence, which was very surprising to me. This huge, impressive person. He was a little bit shy and a little bit tentative doing comedy. So that was fun to work with him on it and sort of kick them in the ass to get them going, and that was really fun. We had a good time. Very labor intensive, and it took a lot of emotional stuff, but it was stuff I liked doing.
Nevada is my state. I'm going to be president. I'm going to be the first elected lady president. I'm going to have a lovely inauguration. Billy Joel is going to sing.
My agent told me that they were developing a show over at HBO about a female unhappy vice president. I was like, bam, where do I sign up? That was all I needed to hear. And that Armando Iannucci was writing and creating it. This was his brainchild. And I knew his work from In the Loop, which is a movie I had seen starring James Gandolfini that Armando had done and was nominated for an Academy Award for, as a matter of fact. And so I met with Armando. We were supposed to meet for about 45 minutes to talk about it, and it turned into a 3-hour work session. It couldn't have been more fun. Pitching ideas, talking about, I grew up part of my life in Washington, D.C., so a huge part of my childhood was spent there. So there's an understanding that I have of inside the beltway, as we call it, of D.C. that I sort of could bring to the conversation, in addition to the fact that I've done a lot of political work, and so I've sort of seen behind the curtain a lot, and that was very useful too. So we had a great time. I immediately thought he was a genius, which of course he is, and off we went, and we made it over at HBO, which was like a dream for me, really nice to get away from network television, truth be told, and have more creative freedom. My God, it was incredible. It's been the most incredible ride of my life. We did so much research to prepare for this show. I mean, in addition to meeting vice presidents, we met with lobbyists, we met with congressmen and congresswomen and senators and chiefs of staff and secretary of this, secretary of that, schedulers. I mean, across the board, we met so many people and got to tour the Eisenhower building, spent time in the actual White House, in the Oval Office, in fact. I mean, we did a ton of behind-the-scenes work, which really, really reaped many rewards. The thing that I'll miss most about playing Selina is she really was a toddler trapped in a middle-aged woman's body. And there was something very fabulous about that, because how a toddler thinks the world revolves around them, and how a toddler has a tantrum every couple times a day when they don't get their way. Well, that's how Selina behaved. And it was accepted by everybody who worked for her. And she blamed everybody for her faults. Also, that was accepted. So that was from a comedic point of view, that was just so ripe with opportunity. And so I will miss that, actually. I will miss playing that kind of character who's reckless emotionally. I was very happy with our finale. I think I hope we gave the fans what they wanted. We certainly worked hard, and blood, sweat, tears, and more tears were poured into that finale. I think that it worked out really well, in the sense that Selina got what she thought she wanted. In so doing, she gives up people who are the most important to her. And she's left with that. And that felt exactly right.
My point is that laughter is a basic human need, along with love and food and an HBO subscription. There's no situation, none, that isn't improved with a couple of laughs. Everybody needs laughs. So the fact that I've had the opportunity to make people laugh for a living is one of the many blessings that I have received in my life.
When I first was notified about the Mark Twain Prize, I thought that they were emailing me to present it to another person. And I was like, oh my God, I can't fly all the way to DC. I'm in the middle of production. To present an award. And then I realized they were actually asking me if I wanted to receive the award. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Of course I want to take that award. And it was an incredibly lovely night. I will say there was a lot of pressure, because when they give you an award such as that for comedy, then you're asked to make a 10, 15-minute speech. So it's like they give you the award, and then it's now like, prove it. Prove you can really, you're really deserving of this trophy. So there was a lot of, you know, God almighty, I worked so hard on that speech, and I was very nervous about it. But it was a very warm room. It was surprisingly emotional. I had a lot of really good friends show up to make speeches and so on, and it was a night I will never, ever forget. But there's one person who was happier about that night than anybody else in the whole world, and that was my mother. My mother was so out of her mind, she was just beaming. And she actually told me afterwards it was the happiest night of her life. And no offense to Mark Twain, but you know, other things have happened in her life, but she really had a good time. She did. She told me that. She's like, Mom, come on. The comedy that I've done has been just sort of a happy accident because I'm an actress. I'm not a comedian per se. When looking back at my career choices, would I change anything? Of course I would change things, but I'm not going to delve into that. I'm not going to delve into a list of regrets. Yeah, there's tons I would change, but I'm very happy with where I am right now. I consider myself to be very lucky. We'll just leave it at that. I hope this interview goes on for 20 more years. I want to be on this Apple box 20 years from now answering more questions about myself.